Is Xbox betraying its fans? Could this be the blueprint for the Xbox handheld? What's up, y'all, and welcome to Xbox Ready. I am Ray, and this is my channel that's dedicated to all things Xbox. And I'm once again here with my buddy Jimmy Champagne to get his expertise on a number of topics because, believe it or not, a lot of things going on with Xbox this week have something to do with PlayStation or PC or handheld gaming, all things that Jimmy is an absolute G at.
It's like perfect storm of things that I know a lot about. This never happens.
The only thing that's missing is cars.
Yeah, then we'd be like, "Kshing."
But yeah, other than that, we're covering all of Jimmy's bases. Y'all think he's just a PlayStation guy? No, he is an expert in handheld gaming. That's why he's got a whole channel dedicated to it called Deck Ready. And overall, he's just chill. So you know what? He's on the channel. Deal with it. So yeah, Jimmy texted me the story about these job listings that are popping up, leading people to believe that the Coalition is trying to bring Gears of War E-Day to PlayStation 5. Now, this is not the most surprising thing ever. We know that Xbox is trying this kind of multi-platform light scenario with other titles like Sea of Thieves. And before they announced what games they were going to be bringing over to PlayStation 5 and Switch, like Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, those games, there were rumors saying that they were going to bring Gears 5 over, Starfield over, maybe even a couple of Halo games to PlayStation 5. So not the most surprising thing in the world, but damn, like, you just gotta think, like, as an Xbox fan, you can't have man, like, they finally throw a good game up at the showcase that everyone is excited for, an Xbox exclusives that, you know, rallies the fandom and even people beyond the fandom. Like, damn, they're bringing back Dom and Marcus Phoenix. This game looks really cool. The trailer is supposedly in engine, and if this is true, we don't know for sure if it is just yet, but if this is true, you got to think like, damn, this is just really disappointing.
I agree. That's what I said in my video. I was like, I'm not mad that it comes to PS5, right? Because, I mean, it doesn't really matter because the place I would play it is PC, just so I could do the multiplayer and everything. It just feels like such weird timing when they've got all these great games lined up for Xbox to now do it. If these came out and bombed on Xbox, I'd understand, but, you know, Indiana Jones, then Dune the Dark Ages, then Fable, then the one we're talking about, Gears of War E-Day. It's like, those are 4 banger games in a row. So to have those all come out in PS5, it's just like, feels like giving up. And then between that and the like Fire Stick thing, I don't know. It's weird.
A lot of people seem to be really into the Fire Stick thing, at least like the idea of it. That the video I did about it is doing really well view-wise, and I did not expect that to happen because usually when I talk about cloud gaming, people are like, "Shut up, Ray. Get back to talking about something else." Not only does Xbox have a good string of upcoming games like the ones Jimmy was just mentioning, I would say that Gears E-Day stands at like the pinnacle of that. You finally have this game that could really be a system seller, an ecosystem seller, whatever Xbox wants to call it. The thing that Phil Spencer says doesn't really exist anymore. Well, if any game could be that, it would be Gears E-Day. An Xbox game that comes out and people are like, damn, that looks really sick. I should buy at least a Series S to try and play it, or maybe a PC and get Game Pass to try it out. Like, it could very well be that kind of game. So even the prospect of it maybe coming to PlayStation 5, super disappointing as an Xbox fan. There are certain things, I will admit, at one point, there was a time where I was like, you know, what do I really care if some Xbox games or franchises go multi-platform? But after some reflection, introspection, there are certain franchises that should just remain Xbox exclusive in perpetuity. Gears is one of them.
I agree. That just makes sense to me. And even if they did something where like the multiplayer was on PS5 just to get more people in it, but they're like, hey, if you want to get the story, you got to buy an Xbox. I feel like that would be a good marketing move. Like, there's so many tricky things you could do there that they're just not doing. If they were just honest and upfront about this stuff, it would be a lot easier to talk about. But it seems like they just make moves on the fly and then just go, oh yeah, guys, we're not doing exclusives on PlayStation. And then they do. And then they're like, oh, it's only a few. And then they're like, well, maybe more. It's like, just get your message figured out.
I mean, there is a real scenario where they ship this game over to PlayStation 5. We know that internally at Microsoft, the whole multi-platform initiative is being referred to as Project Latitude. And the last time we heard about it, there was apparently no red lines. So there is a very real threat of Gears E-Day showing up on PlayStation 5. And, you know, maybe they could make more money that way. Maybe it makes more business sense to, open it up to a wider variety of customers, whatever. But you got to throw a bone to these people who invested in the console, endured the great drought of 2022, have stuck by your services like Game Pass, even through price increases and all that stuff. You got to throw them a bone. You got to reward them in some way.
Yeah, and also the whole Xbox One generation, too. They stuck through with that. They're like one step ahead of when they should give up, I guess. I feel like they should have done at least one more run of these exclusives when all the ones that you guys have been waiting for and I've been waiting for are finally coming out.
Exactly. Like, it's just now starting to get good. Xbox leadership is saying the stuff like, we're really going to start to hit our stride. We're really going to meet that goal finally of a AAA first party game every quarter. And then they have the showcase. They show us those games, but you're already starting to see some missteps in that. Doom is already confirmed for PlayStation 5, and I really thought that was going to be Xbox exclusive. I was really looking forward to it. I'm still looking forward to it because it looks dope.
And that wouldn't even matter. Like, I'm playing that on PC. There's no way I'm playing a Doom game with a controller. I'm playing that with keyboard and mouse, and I feel like that's a huge audience anyway that Xbox would have. Sure, they would lose a lot of PlayStation players by putting it on Xbox and PC only, but I still feel like it would do fine.
This is just a rumor right now. The job listing.
Jez Corden said it was fake, so
yeah, Jez saying it's fake. But Jez is also the one that was talking about Project Latitude and identified that whole initiative in Xbox. So like, Xbox can squash this whole thing and just come out and be like, you know what? These are going to stay exclusive. These are going multi-platform. Or they can come out and be like, you know what? We're kind of discussing it internally because Microsoft wants us to ship it, blah, blah, blah. Like, just come out and give us any sort of update, because for every cool thing that Xbox does, there's always a lingering thought in the back of a lot of fans' minds being like, okay, what's the catch here? What is the disappointing news to come along with this really awesome news that we just got? They just got to be more transparent. But even though there may or may not be a PlayStation version of Gears of War E-Day, in a surprising twist of events, you may be playing PlayStation 3 games on your Xbox console, your Series X and S. Now, chances are if you own an Xbox and you follow my channel, you know about dev mode on our Xbox consoles. So how it works, I did this with my Series S. You pay $19 and you make your console a dev kit. And the intention is, like, you can work on your own games, develop your own games through your Xbox. But what I use it for, and what a lot of people use it for, is emulation. Dev mode is getting Mesa support, which would make it easier to emulate PS3 titles. And Jimmy, I'm glad that you're here to talk about this, because for a long time, as long as I've known you, you have had beef with PlayStation 3 support, PlayStation 3 era games, specifically on the modern day PlayStation consoles.
Yeah. I've wanted it since the beginning of this generation, because I had a PSP, I had a PS2, I had a PS1, but the PS3 era is my favorite era of Sony games, and there's a lot of games that aren't available anymore unless you're streaming through PlayStation Plus Premium, which is a terrible experience top to bottom. Stuff like Infamous 1 and 2, Resistance 1, 2, and 3, Warhawk, Starhawk, the entire MotorStorm franchise. They were pumping out first-party games left and right during the PS3 generation, and the only way to play them is to use the worst possible way to stream them in the entire market. So with the power of the PS5, everyone was kind of assuming that was finally going to be the time that this would actually happen. It hasn't happened. Allegedly, they're working on it, but you can emulate PS3 games on your PC. You can emulate PS3 games on your Steam Deck. You can emulate them on your ROG Ally. Once again, the PC market is beating Sony at their own game. And even when we get this emulator from Sony, based on past experiences with this PS2 emulator they just released, with their PSP emulator that they use for classic games there, the PS1 emulator, it's going to be this half-baked system where, as someone who has a good gaming PC, I'm not going to really want to even do it on my PS5 because the situation's not going to be as good. So now you're going to be able to get this RCPS3 or whatever it's called on your Xbox Series X, which is the best PS3 emulator. So even when Sony does eventually release the PS3 games, if this does work out and they get these games running on the Series X as they do on PC, you're going to have a better experience playing PS3 games with a Xbox Series X controller on your Series X than you will on the official Sony console. which is insane.
I mean, yeah, the irony here is that people just want a way to play these games, especially as the years go on and they start disappearing from storefronts and they're not supported digitally anymore. One, this shows the ingenuity of, the gaming community, and this happens a lot with the modding community for certain Bethesda games. They're able to band together and find solutions to things before like these platform holders and these studios are. And it's just a weird bit of irony because it's like officially Xbox doesn't want you using their consoles for emulation because technically it's illegal, right? Like depending on where you get that emulator, a lot of them are free. You're not really paying for them. Technically, it's like pirating them, right? But it's like, okay, if you just gave us a straightforward solution to emulate your old games, then we wouldn't have to be doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not paying $180 a year to stream PS3 games. Like that's just not happening. Like it's not a solution. It's not even I was going to say it's not a good solution. It's not a solution. It's just a bad system all around.
And I also think it's interesting because this is kind of a glimpse into the future that me and Jimmy have been discussing over like with this whole Xbox being less of a console and more like a PC, has multiple storefronts on it like Steam and the Epic Game Store. Maybe you can even play PlayStation games that are put onto Steam and are supported through there. So yeah, while I was just bitching and moaning about like, oh, we need Xbox to return to the kind of old school way of doing things, exclusives, a closed off ecosystem. There are some times where I'm like, that could be kind of cool if you were able to get games from other platforms onto a single Xbox console.
That would be sick. And it gives you an experience, like a good way to play stuff like, original God of War 1 and 2 and Chains of Olympus, Ghost of Sparta, because there was a PS3 collection of those games. You can play all 3 Jak and Daxter games. You can play all the Sly Cooper games, Shadow of the Colossus, all the ones I mentioned like Warframe, Starframe, Resistance 1, 2, and 3, Infamous 1 and 2. Like you could go back to the entire PS3 generation and, I don't know, get nostalgic because games were just so awesome back then. And that's really what sold me on PlayStation was I had a 360 for the first half of that generation. And then when Uncharted 2 came out, I went and got a PS3. I got Uncharted, Little Big Planet 2, Infamous 1 and 2, and Resistance 1 and 2. And that Christmas break was like awesome. It was so cool.
Officially, if you want to try either of these emulators that are detailed in the article that me and Jimmy are talking about, you didn't hear from us. That's all I'm saying. And finally, we're going to wrap up the video with Jimmy's other area of expertise, handheld gaming devices. Now, there's been a lot of chatter over the past year or so about a potential Xbox handheld. Oh, it's being worked on by the Surface team. Oh, it's going to like run PC versions of the game, but like emulate them. Oh, this, and that. It's going to come out in 2026. It's going to look like this, going to look like that. Oh, there's like a Wi-Fi update that makes me believe they're working on all sorts of rumors circulating around about an Xbox handheld. But if you're tired of these rumors, if you're tired of waiting for Xbox to put out a handheld gaming device, you may have the next best thing with the ROG Ally X. Now, it seems like just yesterday, man, I was over at your apartment and you were just sent the ROG Ally OG and you were showing me it. I was like, oh, shoot, this is cool, man. And I talked about it in a video right after Summer Games Fest. And you have experience with both, and you have experience with the Steam Deck, the Ally, the frickin' Lenovo Go, like all of the handheld devices. What are your thoughts about the X, the Ally X?
Man, if you're an Xbox fan who has Game Pass Ultimate or PC Game Pass and you've got $800 lying around, this is the one. This is the one that like kind of gets rid of all the big caveats of the original ROG Ally. They fixed the SD card issues. They fixed the battery life. The screen looks really good. It plays Game Pass games super well. It looks awesome. It's all black now instead of being all white. It's more ergonomic. Like it's not as sharp. It feels like they took all the feedback to heart and made the device that people initially wanted back then. The price is insane. That's the one big caveat. It's like they raised the price by $100, but they didn't change the chip or the screen, which are the two most important things in the whole system. So it's like the only thing I could really blame that price increase on is like inflation. It's been awesome playing on this thing all week. I put a ton of time into Forza Horizon 4 and 5. Horizon 4 runs at 1080p, high settings, locked 60. Horizon 5, you set the screen to 900p. You run it at mostly medium and high settings, locked 60. And they improved the joysticks so that you get a lot more control out of them. They're a lot tighter. They improved the face buttons so they're less mushy. They feel nice and clicky. Those are better than the Steam Deck. The triggers feel better. The bumpers feel better. It's more comfortable to hold. Speakers are still great. Fans are still quiet. Like, they really nailed it, which sucks that it's so expensive, and it sucks that they're in this big controversy with their warranty situation. But if you're a Game Pass gamer and you've got the extra money lying around, I think this thing is like awesome kit to add to your like Xbox ecosystem arsenal.
Now, you could probably speak on this a little bit more than I can, but the thing I kept hearing about the OG Ally is that compact Windows, the handheld OS on the Ally, not nearly as good as SteamOS, and that it just all around kind of sucks, especially when you're first setting up. Has there been any change on that?
So they've definitely improved the like ROG Ally app, which is called Armory Crate. You can control like everything with the special button. It brings up a menu, so you can set the screen resolution, you can set the frame rate limiter, you can set the hertz of the screen, you can switch it between mouse mode and game mode. So everything that you would have an issue with in Windows is kind of handled by Asus. The one big problem that every Windows handheld has that this one hasn't figured out is once you pull up the keyboard, you can't use the D-pad and buttons to use the keyboard. You have to either use the touch screen or put it into mouse mode and then use the right joystick to move a mouse. And that just like, that sucks. It's not good. And that's a Windows problem. And the Xbox store is still terrible. Like, it's always going to be bad, it seems like, on PC. But once you get into games, like the frame rate limiting and everything works fine. And if you're using Steam, so not using Game Pass, it has a big picture mode. It's like a little computer at the top right of Steam that just turns it into a Steam Deck right away. So you kind of get the best of both worlds there, where you get that Steam Deck interface if you're using Steam, and you can add your Windows games through a script to Steam and then like run everything through there. And then you can just bounce right back to the Windows desktop and open up the Xbox app and open games that way, and they'll just work, which is cool. But yeah, so using Windows on a handheld is still not an amazing experience. It's not nearly as good as the Steam Deck in terms of like usability.
Do you think like with these companies making basically a portable Xbox already, it's still worth it for Xbox to put out their own first party option? Like, what are some of the lessons here that Xbox can kind of apply to whatever device that they may or may not be working on?
They're all software based. If they can get a flavor of Windows working where it fixes all those issues with navigating a desktop ecosystem to get to games, and then you could then install that version of Windows onto the ROG Ally X, you wouldn't really have a reason to buy the Xbox One, because whatever chip they're going to use is probably going to be either exactly the same as the ROG Ally, if not 10% better. Like, there hasn't been a big jump in chips since the original Steam Deck came out. Like, the Z1 Extreme is more powerful than what you get in the Steam Deck, but it doesn't give you like astronomically more frames. It's like if you're running a game on the Steam Deck at 30 FPS and it's dropping to like 28 sometimes, it won't do that on the Ally. It's not like you're going to be able to play a game at 60 FPS that you're playing at 30 on the Steam Deck. But the reason I'm recommending it to your viewers, whereas on Deck Ready I didn't recommend it, is you get Game Pass access. You can't really mess with Game Pass on the Steam Deck unless you install Windows, which sucks. Like, if you're an Xbox user, you have a big Xbox library of games, you have Game Pass Ultimate. This is really your only option when it comes to a handheld, and I wouldn't expect the Xbox native handheld to be all that different. I would expect it to be cheaper because they own the storefront. They own the Game Pass app, so they'll be able to take a hit on the actual handheld and sell it for cheaper. But if you're all in on getting a handheld and you're in that Xbox ecosystem, I really don't have many complaints about this thing other than Windows.
Anyways, guys, that's all the Xbox stuff we have to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Xbox Ready. If you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing. Ring that little bell to be alerted whenever I post a video so you can keep up to date on all the things going on in the Xbox ecos world. Anyway, guys, see ya.